This is where the music comes in and your guest comes in.
Yeah, it's like, hey, welcome, Tom Stanimeros, everybody. Thanks for coming on.
I'm your English guest, so I thought I'd have a tea while we...
That's so fucking nice, dude. I tell you what, the production value's really gone up from like sitting in the smokers of La La Land with no fucking like tripod to now I've got a full couch set up.
Yeah.
How good's that,
Welcome to my humble abode.
mate. This place is sick, by the way. It's fucking...
Yeah, I like
cool.
the high ceilings.
Yeah.
I think is the true route to happiness.
Absolutely. I like it. Fucking oath. So comedy, dude.
Comedy.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So you started a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, I started June 23.
Yeah. Here in Melbourne?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So I was working in the film industry, and
I
then
didn't know that. What were you doing in the film industry?
I was working as an assistant director. So I worked on like some big films as like a little guy,
Yeah, mad.
and then I worked on some smaller projects as a big guy,
Fuck yeah.
and then I didn't like it.
Right, like just too much sort of admin stuff and like...
I don't mind admin. I don't know. I think it was probably a mix between kind of like realizing that I was committing to a career that wasn't creative.
Yeah.
I was always working towards being like a director or a writer or something like that.
Where you sort of got very rigid kind of process-based...
Yeah, well, I became... So an assistant director is in like the production field.
Right, so you're doing all post stuff.
So I'm doing schedules. I'm doing... I'm like running film sets.
Fuck.
That sort of stuff, which is so super cool, super stressful. But I had a motorcycle accident.
Really?
In February 22, and it was just one of those accidents. It wasn't that severe, but it was severe enough mentally to be like, put everything into perspective.
Yeah,
and be like,
and it like shook you and be like, what am I doing with my life? Sort of thing.
yeah, one of those. And so,
So how did that happen? I didn't know that you even rode bikes.
oh, dude, it was a 125. It was in London. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a huge crash.
Yeah.
But it was enough to kind of shake me up and be like,
For sure.
I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
So I moved over to Australia in like November that year.
That's sick. So you're like, I think you do reach that point, hey, when you're like, well, if I don't do something that's cool and fun now, you get to an age where like, all of a sudden you might be 40 and then be like, what the fuck have I done with the last
Exactly.
kind of 22 years or whatever?
I think I'll feel like if I've never done it, then I would kick myself.
Yeah, for sure. And so did you study film at uni and stuff, or?
So I went to... I did study film. You do not need to study film.
Yeah. I don't even know how one would get into... Like, I know my cousin works in production for TV.
Yeah.
And she had like a super random career and then just like ended up producing television shows.
Oh, no way. Okay.
And so like...
in Australia?
Yeah. She does a bunch of stuff
So
for
what,
Channel
she
9.
produced Neighbours?
She produces, you know, the paramedics like reality show.
Oh, right.
Like shit like that. But yeah, and I was like, when did that happen? Like, that's so random. So was it like a linear thing for you that you were like
I was
interested?
always headed for film.
Yeah.
I think I started making films, like little like home movies when I was like 8.
Yeah.
And
There's a porn joke in there, but I'm far too highbrow to make.
You're highbrow?
Very high.
Down from the Gold Coast.
That's very true. It's fucking 18 degrees. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I wouldn't call myself highbrow. But yeah, so it started when you were younger and then fucking...
Yeah, so I was always making like films when I was younger, like YouTube stuff. Is that toilet annoying you?
I look like it's...
Because it shouldn't be doing that.
Have I broken your toilet?
You just smack it on top and then close the door. It'll sort your sound out.
Oh.
These are the sort of people I'm working with.
Fucking Canadians.
Fucking useless. See, ideally the tea would have a bit of honey in it, but we're looking after ourselves. So we won't put the honey in, but we wish there was honey. Sorry,
What have you been telling them about? I like hit it on top, but I think it's going to stop eventually.
All right. Yeah, so
making home pornos at 8.
It's been such a funny start. Like, so I need to get my tea. Oh wait, bro, do you know the toilet's broken?
The toilet sounds fucked. Go fix it. Yeah. But anyway, making YouTube videos.
Oh yeah, I was like making like home movies. I went to college. I started making films with some other like similar-minded people.
Yeah.
I had a gap year, which I was meant to travel to Australia for, but just didn't end up doing it. Ended up kind of taking a film course, jumped into uni, went to a university, an arts uni.
Sick.
So I was surrounded by lots of like arty people.
Yeah, and like creative types and stuff.
Yeah, and I did a film course, and COVID hit at the end of my second year. And I was like, I think the only way I'm going to make this work to my advantage is to move to London.
Right.
But in the UK, the way that like degrees work is like you can get like a loan from the government to like live and to...
Oh, so they'll like help pay for like, you know, housing and food and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's a loan. That's something you have to pay back, but it is something that they offer. So I was like, if I transfer university to London, then I get to live in London for a year with a loan from the government.
Sick,
and just do some shit film course.
And just like have, you know, explore this, you know, thing in the biggest city.
And it did work out. I ended up getting my first job was Indiana Jones. Like from a Facebook ad. Someone was we need location marshals.
Really?
And I just showed up and they were like, we're filming Indiana Jones.
That's awesome, man. That's like, and from a Facebook, I definitely would have been thinking this has got to be fake kind of deal.
Well, okay, so there were loads of like Facebook pages for like people,
similar like comedy group chat.
People looking for work in film and stuff, and I just happened to stumble across the right one, and the guy gave me a call, and I was like, I wasn't even living in London at the time. I think I was living back home in Cheltenham, and they gave me a call. And they were like, do you live in London? And I didn't live in London at the time. So I was like, like in and around.
Yeah.
And what I meant by that is I've got friends in London.
Yeah, like I can figure out a couch to stay on.
Yeah, I can figure it out. What he heard was, you're a gypsy.
Oh, no.
So I nearly didn't get the job because they thought I was just some random...
traveller kind of fucking...
so my name was Gypsy. And I showed
you were known as Gypsy on set for the fucking rest of your time there.
Yeah.
Right, and so then...
And then you just build connections, make friends, get jobs elsewhere.
That's sick, man.
I committed to kind of like learning the software I needed to know to be an assistant director. Yeah. It was like a scheduling software.
Okay.
Just read up, and the thing about film, unlike comedy, I think to a degree with comedy, really you can't fake it till you make it in comedy.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that you don't know what you're doing if you don't know what you're doing on stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's like, what the fuck?
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's the perfect level playing ground when it comes to comedy because it's like, are you funny?
Yeah, you're either funny or you're not.
Exactly,
kind of
and if you're not funny, you probably either have been wasting your years in comedy or you're new.
Yeah.
When it comes to film, I'm doing like scheduling and like running film sets. If I've got the confidence to pretend I know how to do that.
You're like, I know that program inside and out, and then go home, you're like, how did it...
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. I was always like Googling stuff to try and like...
Yeah.
Scratch up on things that people were yelling at me on set.
You're like, I don't know what happened. I'll fix it tomorrow. You go home, you're like, oh shit. Wow, that's such a... And so was it a quick progression from that sort of like set marshalling to assistant director, or was that like a longer...
I think so. I got cooled. I was on dailies, which is like you're not attached to the film throughout. You'll be called when you're needed. Yeah. And I think I was bounced around a couple of films at that point. I think I did like Mission Impossible. After that, I did like a couple of BBC TV shows.
Dude, that's dope. I had no idea that you had this full film thing. Before comedy, I guess because we know each other from comedy. It's
it's not. Eventually, you just stop talking about it. But so that happened, and then I remember I was on a lock off, right? Which is like, sorry,
that's all right.
Fucking bastards.
It's too popular, mate.
No, it's just my brother.
If you need to get it, feel free.
I don't need to get it. So I was on a lock-off where basically my job as a location marshal was to kind of like make sure crew don't walk across the shot.
Right, gotcha.
So that we were filming on like a airstrip or something, and
So like a big open space and you kind of like don't
yeah,
go.
so the camera's shooting this way. I'm headed around the corner, making sure that any crew that are trying to cut across don't go while we're rolling.
For sure.
And it was like, it was a late night shoot. It was like, I was stood on this lock off for like 2 hours in the freezing cold.
Just miserable.
It was like 4 a.m. and I was like, you know what? This isn't what I want to do. I want to be an assistant director. I want to be scheduling and running film sets. And so what I decided to do was just start looking up tutorials while I was on my lock off of how to use this scheduling software. And I was like, I'm going to be an assistant director.
Like, I'm figuring this out.
Sick and tired of standing on these lock offs. And I think it was maybe like a week or two after that, I was calling round ADs that I kind of like met in passing, just like asking for opportunities, and
sick.
Eventually one got thrown my way, ended up shooting a short film. I was first ADing a short film. It was the first time I'd done it. Had to pretend.
That's all. And you just like, I do this all
doing.
the time.
People were asking me questions, like things that I was doing wrong, and I was like, oh, sorry, it slipped my mind, blah, 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 blah. Crack on, do what you think's right.
It's like classic, like fake it till you make it type stuff, hey, like.
Yeah, it was 100%. That was the story of how I got into assistant directing.
And I've got a few friends that are like, you know, have done really well in business. And he's like, yeah, when I started, it was like always like, yeah, I'll talk to the team about it. It was just him behind a computer sitting there. He's like, fuck, I got to figure out how to do this. But like,
just having the right things to say to make it sound.
Do you reckon that sort of like informed your decision? Because comedy, I think, is a very sort of self-motivated, self-starting type thing. Is your house, mate?
It's my flatmate.
But comedy is a super like self-starting thing where you have to be like, no one's going to write your jokes for you. No one's going to drive an hour and a half to the mic and sit and wait and get on stage. Do you think it sort of helped that, like, okay, I need to get into this position, like that attitude?
I think there's a grind set.
Yeah.
I think...
Grind set.
I think getting into... when I jumped into stand-up, I knew that to have the success that I had in film, I knew that was because of the connections I made.
Yeah.
And so when I jumped into stand-up, I was just trying to meet everyone I could. Like, I was rocking up to open mics. I was that guy at Sellers on a Friday night, just shaking people's hands.
Just hanging out.
I've got no idea who you are, but
for sure.
I remember trying to shake Joel Templey's hand for the first time, and he was just like, "What are you doing?"
He's like, "Who the fuck?" I think he talked about this on the episode I did with him. He's like, people come up to me and try and shake my hand. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I was one of those guys.
So was I. I think I shook you and Steve's hand. Yours was the first mic I went to in Melbourne. Well, not mic, but show I went to in Melbourne. Because Hard Knock Knocks were like, oh yeah, this one's on, you should go and meet them. It was just like...
Oh, did you do the Knock Knocks course?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And then I was just like, oh, hey guys, what's up? I was like, hi. I was like, well, where's a good open mic? And Steve was like, go to Sellers on Friday. I was like, okay. But yeah, I think it's, you know, making those connections and just being a good hang gets you so much further.
Oh, for sure,
You could be super funny, but a huge pain in the ass.
And I think the thing about it is because in film it's very collaborative, and so like moving over to comedy was such a kind of shock where it's like, oh, you're on your own now.
Yeah.
Like, as much as you're on your own, building your own career in film, like, you are part of a collaborative project.
Yeah.
But the quality of your output is determined solely by the work you put in as a comic.
Yeah, 100%.
And so kind of jumping into that and jumping into a competitive environment, and like everybody hits that kind of like 2-3 months into comedy, think they know it all kind of ego state. And I think
you get a few good laughs and you're like, I might actually be fucking Richard Pryor.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then you realise you've only got 3 minutes.
Yeah, and they're like average, and then you tell those 3 minutes for another 3 months and you're like, fuck, I got to do some writing.
Yeah, people are hating this pedophile material.
It's like, I don't know why the fucking... I had a bit like that. I can't remember what it was, but it died every time, but I just really liked saying it. And I think it was Dan Bray was like, you need to stop doing that bit. Like, it just doesn't work. Rewrite it, do something. I was like, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, I've got a joke at the moment that I'm loving, but it's just, I can't get away with it.
Just killing rooms.
Yeah.
But yeah, so was comedy always something that you sort of enjoyed, wanted to do, or was it like something you found?
It's so crazy kind of like looking back, because I remember like hanging out with one of my mates, like while I was in London, chasing my film dreams.
Yeah.
And we were like doing that like classic kind of like, oh, if you were famous, what would you want to be famous for?
Yeah.
And I was like, comedian. It's hands down comedian. And it wasn't like film director or
like actor or like...
I think maybe at one stage it was, but I think I just realised that to be a stand-up would be the coolest thing.
Mine was just winning Big Brother, but, you know, someday...
I can see you doing it.
You know what? I think I would be really good in Big Brother. Shit at Survivor, I'm way too prissy for that. Like, there's no aircon on this fucking island, and I'm hot. What are we doing here, guys? It's too hot. But, yeah. But that's funny that you came to, like, that realisation, because I mean, obviously, we're both comedians, so we think being a comedian is the best thing, you know, that you could be doing. But, like, you know, it's just so fun. And I don't think, like, a lot of other jobs, like, have shit parts. And so, of course, comedy does as well, you know, touring and stuff people find tiring. But, like, getting on stage and telling jokes and making people laugh is genuinely the most fun.
Absolutely. And it's I mean, it's all we're really chasing now. But it's, like, the community, the weird characters that you get.
Absolutely. Hanging out, like, at any show, you instantly sort of have this rapport with other comics, even if you haven't met them before. Like, it's like you break that kind of, like, awkward, hey, how you doing? You're, like, kind of testing the waters with people to see
absolutely.
a bit.
Absolutely. And you see people, like, come from different states and they drop down and, like, I mean, you did that as well. And you just you instantly have a group and a clique that you can plug into because you're all comics. Yeah,
definitely. And so, like, what was your sort of start like? Because you run Goffs in Richmond on Wednesday. We'll put in the description of the podcast for the 20 people that might listen who aren't comedians. But yeah, so what was your sort of progression from, I guess, participating in the scene to, like, being an active sort of contributor?
So like you, I did that comedy course when I first started. I think when it started, I was, like, kicking around Melbourne for, like, 5 months when I first arrived here.
Yeah.
And then I went to Vietnam and I was like, I know that Melbourne has a comedy scene.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I just jumped straight in. I started going to the Rubber Chicken, which was a comedy club at the time.
Yeah.
And I was just going to open mics and I was watching and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to get up.
Yeah.
Was that my plan?
Yeah.
I do.
Hey, dude, what's going on? But yeah,
this isn't the first time this whole lounge room has been moved around for filming. Four guys used.
What have you been filming? We're back to porn again.
Well, the sketches I did with Jai.
Oh, of course. No shit. Yeah.
So I jumped up on stage with, like, just the worst material.
Did you think it was great?
I didn't put that much effort in. Right. I had like dot points that I thought might be funny to mention, and I just kind of, like, riffed and came up with something.
Yeah.
Did the course after a couple of mics, which was fine. Probably gave me the confidence I needed to jump in.
Yeah.
I didn't think comedy was, like, a career route.
Yeah.
I thought it was just for a bit of fun,
just like
a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, and a good way to like meet cool people and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was talking about how I wanted to start a room pretty early on.
Yeah.
Again, that production background, like, I was just like, I think that's totally something I could do.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Steve about it.
Yeah.
Steve Bradshaw. And then the Rubber Chicken closed down just suddenly.
Yeah.
The doors got locked by the landlords, etc. That's a whole story.
Yeah.
But we now lost our regular Wednesday spot.
Yeah.
And so Steve called me up and was like, hey, I know you want to start a room. Let's go on a recce. Let's have a couple of beers. Let's go check out
somewhere to, you know,
some places around Richmond. And yeah, we just kind of, like, went to as many pubs as we could find on a map.
Yeah.
And
super fun. You know, I'm doing market research right now. That's why I'm going to all these bars. Just doing pub crawls. You know, this is for work, actually.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then, yeah, it just kind of happened. I think I was, like, 2 months in when I started Goffs.
Fuck yeah.
And just from the jump, it was a great room.
Yeah. It's such a sick space. Like,
yeah,
really cool for
worked.
comedy.
We didn't think it would, but it does. Like, just having a bar show there and a little cocktail lounge.
Yeah. And it's awesome. It seems like they're a real good venue to work with in terms of like willing to let you use
Oh, they're
space.
fully
and, like,
supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think, like there's been a lot of rooms that we've seen come and go, and like, there's friction between owners and expectations and stuff like that. So it's like really hard to find.
I think what happens is, I mean, I've seen enough rooms start and close because of this, where you get a bunch of open micers who are new and they start and they're just saying heinous shit.
It's just, I've got a microphone, therefore I can say horrible, horrible things.
Yeah, and then like even the host is doing it and all of their friends are doing the same sort of material, and then the bar owner's like, I'm hosting just fucking...
I'm hosting a clan meeting right now.
Yeah. And it's like, this is scaring off punters, and I think me and Steve just knew that we wanted to put on good shows, good comics.
Yeah, because I think of running...
We've always been very careful of the sort of comics that we do put up.
Yeah.
If there is a dark comic that we want to put up, we'll make sure that they're kind of like on a lineup with a very clean...
Yeah, and they understand the kind of audiences that you've got in your venue.
Yeah, I think we hope that people clock on. Sometimes people don't read a room.
Yeah.
If you come with your set and you think it's going to be da-da-da-da-da, and then you see the venue and the crowd and what they're into, and you're able to change your material, then
just be adaptable.
You've got a very good skill.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think that when I first started, I always used to like have exactly the order and exactly the jokes that I wanted to do.
I think you have to when you first start.
And then if something fucked that up, I'd be like, I don't know what to do right now, and then I'd seize up and be all awkward on stage and stuff.
Yeah,
and
weird. Totally. I remember having that as well. I think I'm still very scripted.
Yeah,
I think I still have that, but I think slowly kind of picking up those tools.
Yeah,
where you're able to kind of like move out of it. I wouldn't say my set is as rigid anymore.
Yeah,
I think I kind of do whatever material comes to me when I'm up there. It doesn't need to. I'll still write out my set and hit a couple of points. All I really need to write down are the new jokes that I'm trying to work on.
For sure.
Remind myself this is what I'm trying to work on.
I'm trying to talk about this kind of, because there's nothing worse than when you get halfway through a joke and you're like, where am I going right now?
Yeah,
What am I supposed to be talking about? Like, I've had that a couple of times where I've like gotten to I forgot Samuel L. Jackson's name. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be, it's the whole punchline of the joke. I was like, I don't even know who I'm talking about right now. Which gets a laugh, but then in your head you're like, well, that wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
Thing. And then, so was it always like, because you always get great punters, always had good comics on the lineup. Has that been like, have you had to work to kind of keep public interest up? Or do you think, the bar, the location, the level of comic you're putting on sort of does that for itself?
I think so. I think if you put on a good show, I think there are a lot of open mics where they go, oh, we've got an audience. Let's call all of our friends and just put everyone on
every single
to enjoy a crowd.
Yeah.
But I think we've always been quite rigid and gone, no, this is when the night ends. This is where we close it.
And I think that as well gives audiences, like, if you've got a set time, like 10, 15 minutes either side, whatever. But if, you go to Sellers and it's 3.5 hours long, then it's hard to say. Like, I went to Theo Von once and it was like 2 hours, and after an hour and a half I was like, and he's amazing, but after an hour and a half
it doesn't matter how good it
I was like, all right, I just want to go to the bar right now, or like go to the toilet, you know, kind of thing.
You can only sit for so long. I mean, I think Sellers is kind of a special...
Well, it's a different thing because it's a mic and it's chaos and it's like people coming in and out.
Yeah, and you can just jump in and out.
But I more meant, not to talk shit on Sellers because Joel's going to get upset with me now. I more meant like...
Joel will be the first to show.
But like running a mic like that at like a normal sort of bar wouldn't work because you don't have people coming in and out.
No, and so I think it just works. It's like, so Sellers is a open mic that happens at the back of a bottle shop.
Yeah.
The format fits the function.
Yeah.
Or the function fits the format. Yeah. And then when me and Steve started a room, the room that we were trying to replicate was the one that we lost at the Rubber Chicken.
Oh, right.
And that room was a bucket pool open mic.
Okay, cool.
So we were going to do a bucket pool open mic.
Yeah.
And then remembered how much we hated waiting around to know when we're on.
Yeah.
And then we found Goffs, and it's like a really nice New York style cocktail bar. And we were like, oh, we can't bring just the worst people.
Bring for like 20 of the most insane human beings.
We can't create a Sellers at this nice cocktail bar.
Yeah.
That's going to hate it. So we were like, let's curate it. Let's put a list together of, you know, comics we think would be great at closing or headlining. And then just kind of like all of our friends, and we prioritized room runners. The whole point of starting that room was to kind of network and get to know the people, jump on other mics and stuff.
For sure. And that look, a lot of people, I've had people get grumpy with me about that sort of attitude, and but I think that's just the reality. I was talking to Andrew Portelli about it, and he was like, you got to sort of give to people, like if you can have an opportunity for someone to come and do stand-up, they're way more willing to give you an opportunity. And then you get to a point where you're good enough because you've been giving and taking and, you know, contributing, that eventually you're good enough that everyone wants to book you anyway, kind of thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the aim. And also, I don't really understand. I think there are a lot of comics who've never run a room before, and they've got a lot of opinions about how rooms should be run. Yeah,
definitely.
I think stage time is our economy.
Yeah, 100%.
And we trade it
without a doubt. Yeah,
and that's kind of how we accrue more stage time. It's so funny. It's so funny in comedy. Like, it's such a mental battle.
What do you? In what? I agree, but in what way?
I think you're just constantly dealing with some very interesting characters. You're dealing with egos, and whilst I'd say like 80 to 90% of the time it's a good time, I think there's also that 10 to 20% where you're just like, fuck, I hate these people.
There's definitely been moments, for sure. The worst for me is when, you know, like if you've had a shitty day and then you've got to go and be social and like do the whole like, oh yeah, man, what's up? And you just like, I don't, fuck it. Like, I just want to get up, do my time, and fuck off, kind of thing. I think you're right. Like, it is a huge mental battle in a lot of ways. Like, are these jokes good? Was that audience, like, did I just deliver it wrong, or is the joke bad, or, you know, why is this person getting these opportunities? And it's like a very, because you're right, it is competitive. As much as it's like a solo art form that you can work at, there is that element of competition.
Especially in Melbourne, where there's just not that much opportunity.
Yeah. Which is interesting, because like, I think there is opportunity, but I've said this before, it's sort of like there's mics, and then there's sort of like book shows, but then there's a huge jump to like touring and the lounge and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, or you could be touring and not getting the lounge. Like, there's like touring. Have you got an agent, or are you going out on your own back? Like Jared Goundry. Jared goes out. He books his own shows. He's
completely self-managed.
Yeah.
That's it. He's so funny.
Yeah, really he's funny. Brilliant. And I think that's the route I'll eventually go down when I've got enough minutes and I've accrued enough stage time and feel like I'm ready to do that. But, you know, there's no wrong answer in comedy. It's like, create your own path. It's why I'm leaving Melbourne. Yeah. Like,
very sad. I can't believe you're fucking leaving. I'm actually so flat about it. When are you heading off?
So I'm leaving. So I've got Sydney coming up next week. Yeah. Heading to Sydney.
You organise spots and stuff up there, or?
Got spots up there, doing a couple of shows. Then I'm heading. Then it's the comedy festival at the end of March.
Yep. Super excited about it. Goffs Comedy putting on great shows, including Dark Times, Darker Comedy. Buy tickets now.
I forgot we let you do a show.
You're managing the venue that I'm running.
So after all of the chaos of comedy festival, managing all those shows, running our own lineups, I'll then probably have about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'm heading off mid-May.
Fuck, that's very sad.
Yeah. I mean, I wish Melbourne had a little bit more oomph during the winter season. And I think the winter season last year just kind of, like, made the decision for me.
Like, sort of stand-up wise, or just in general?
No, just stand-up wise.
Because I was in Queensland, so I've never done a winter. Are you telling me I've made a huge mistake?
Oh, yeah, totally. I don't care what the weather's like.
Yeah.
I just care whether there's
Well,
an
you're
audience.
British, so
So fair. But here's what I've found about Melbourne audiences is if it's too cold, they don't leave the house, and if it's too hot, they don't leave the house. And you have to have this like Goldilocks zone where
of like 20 to like 30, 31 is sort of where you're going to get people. Anything either side of that,
yeah, exactly.
they're going to be like, I can just stay home and watch
Yeah,
TV.
or if it like starts raining, it's like, cool, well, there goes our audience for the evening.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens in the UK. Or it would happen a lot less. Like, we will leave the house.
Again, not to make another British joke, but if they didn't go out when it was raining, industry would halt.
Yeah, well, exactly.
So where are you moving back to Cheltenham?
No. So I'm originally from Cheltenham, moving back to Manchester.
Manchester,
I'm
yeah.
going to make Manchester my home scene.
Sick.
Looking to just kind of like make that home base, kind of operate out of there. And then, I don't know, maybe eventually head to London. But I don't feel ready for that London leap. I'm so new.
I think you're selling yourself short. I understand what you're saying, but I think you're really, really funny.
Thank you, man. I think I need to be. I think I just need the minutes.
Yeah.
I don't have the minutes. If someone goes, "Hey, here's 25 minutes. Be funny for 25ve minutes."
You don't have 25.
Give it a good go, but I probably will.
There's going to be some ups and
After
downs.
the 15-minute mark, I'm running out of material.
For sure.
And so at the moment, all I'm doing is I'm just working on my gear, working on getting those kind of new jokes down, and heading to Edinburgh Fringe this year. I'm going to go check out what that's all about.
I may see you there. I'm thinking about.
You thinking of going?
Just to do spots.
Yeah,
and like
that's all I'm
immerse
doing.
myself in the fucking culture. It just seems like the most fun thing.
I'm treating it as a recce.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was talking to a guy at a gig in the Gold Coast. I've forgotten his name. That's Andrew Roper. Do you know him? He's done a few tours around Melbourne and stuff. No. Older dude, but he has been like 9 times. And he was like, if you can afford it, it's the best time ever.
Yeah.
And like you can get up 5 or 6 times a day if you really want to.
Yeah.
Which,
well, that's exactly what I'm going for.
Yeah. Oh, we might have to confer post-podcast. Yeah, because it's not cheap at all. I was looking at
it's not
today,
cheap. And you've also got the additional cost of a flight.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's pretty tough.
For sure. And it was funny, I was talking to Aidan Jones about it, and I was like, I'm not sure, I know you did it, what was it like? He was like, well, you can just make money, just sell your show. And I was like, I don't have a show.
Yeah.
I'd just be going to do spots. He was like, oh yeah, you're going to spend a lot of money then, for sure. I was like...
Yeah, well, I am in the situation where I'll be in Manchester anyway.
Yeah.
So if I didn't head up to Edinburgh...
Why wouldn't you?
It would just be stupid not to.
For sure.
So my plan is to...
And Manchester's got a pretty, solid scene from what I've heard.
From what I've heard, if you look up Comedy Club on Google Maps in Manchester, enough places pop up. More than do in Melbourne.
It doesn't seem like there's really, we've probably got, 3 in Melbourne? Probably 2 full-time.
So you've got Republic, Lounge.
There's that basement one on Collins Street.
You've got Basement Comedy, which I think was originally a room, but has kind of become its own club in a way. And then...
But dedicated spaces,
Yeah, there's so few.
It's not really an Australian thing. I don't know why, because there are a lot of comedians and people that like comedy.
I don't think, and I've said this quite a few times, probably on multiple podcasts, where I think when it comes to comedy in Australia, it's not part of your culture.
How do you mean?
When I was growing up, kids like my age would ask me, who's your favourite comedian?
Oh, right.
Around the dinner table, we were quoting our favourite comics.
Right.
It was just part of kind of growing up. Stand-up comics, it was like we understood the art form, we appreciated it. I think in Australia, you guys have Carl Barron.
Yeah. And Jim Jeffries, but no one liked him until he was in the US.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's known that in Australia you guys are like... take Goffs, for example. Every Wednesday I feel like I'm teaching an audience how to be a comedy audience. And sometimes you have people just sat there silently, and I'm like, this isn't...
This you got to interact with.
This isn't a fucking theatre. Like, this isn't a movie.
It's
like,
not performance. It's not, like some artistic performance. Well, it is in a way, but it's not something to sit there and be like,
Yeah. It's not a movie.
Very apt commentary on the way that you came on that person.
Yeah.
It's very cultural.
And so, and then like the worst part is like, so how are Australians learning what comedy is from crowd work comedians on TikTok? And so they come to a comedy show and it's a one-way conversation and they're like, do I yell something out now?
Yeah, like when is it my turn to yell something at the comedian?
Yeah.
Sure. I've had that with a few people I've invited to comedy shows and they've heckled everybody on the lineup. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, but I saw online.
Yeah.
Like,
so you can't blame them. Like that's exactly what they.
I blame them. I was not happy.
I mean, you probably should have briefed them before they went in.
Yeah.
But so I think that's the difference, and I think less people in Australia would be inclined to kind of come out.
Yeah.
To see a comedy show. I think unless you're like TV famous.
Yeah, well, they'll
come out and see you because you're on TV. They won't come out and see you because they like comedy.
Yeah, because they can say, we at the dinner table, it's not, did you hear that joke? It's like we went and saw Husey or whatever, whoever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was interesting because I was talking to a guy from Queensland. I talked to a couple of comics from Queensland. I was like, the road doesn't exist here, really. Like people do tour and stuff, but it seems like in America and in the UK, like a certain level of comedian can earn a living from like doing comedy clubs and just traveling around the country and doing stand-up.
You'd be a club comic.
Yeah, whereas here...
What the fuck is a club comic in Australia?
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
I do the lounge on a...
Yeah, Wednesday.
Really?
I do 10 minutes and then...
Then I'll pop over to the Republic.
Yeah.
And then take a 9-hour flight.
To go do another trick, like 3 days of 10 minutes at the Sydney store, then I'll fly to Perth. But I don't like... I don't know. I'm trying to, like you're in that group chat, I'm trying to organise this country towns thing because I think that could be a way people start earning money purely because, and I don't mean any disrespect to any country people listening, there's fuck all to do in some of these towns. So if there's an event on...
That's a fair statement.
Yeah, like if you're like 4 hours away from a major city and there's nothing going on a Friday night except the local pub, I think you're more inclined to
give it a go. Country audiences are the best, man. I mean, it's why I love Geelong, because it's not even a country town. It's just there's kind of like there's a pool of people there where it's like, well, there aren't loads of things going on.
Yeah, and it's more special. It's almost like we're spoiled for choice. In like people think, there's stuff happening all the time. So
you're not only spoiled for choice, but like the choices he's screaming at you in a city like Melbourne, where it's like. When I first came to Melbourne, I had no idea what to do because there was too much at the buffet. You know what I mean? And
like paralysis by analysis. You're like, you end up doing nothing because you're like, this is all overwhelming. Almost.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so I think when you go to kind of country towns, like that, not only are they more up for it, they're less influenced by big city culture. Like they're easier to laugh. They're up for it, and then just getting to hang out with them afterwards.
Yeah,
because it's like
you're all in the same like pub or whatever, and like, hey, we're
here to have a good time.
Yeah, even in the Gold Coast, I find it's more like that than Melbourne.
Oh, really?
Like people come up to you after the show, can I buy you a beer? That was so funny. That was great. How long you been doing it for? I mean, not to me, to other comedians, obviously.
You've no experience.
One day, I hope.
Hey, that was almost funny.
Hey,
I'll buy you a half pint.
You can have the rest of my one. Great, thank you. It's always the crusty old guy with herpes. But anyway, I think it's a weird thing about Melbourne where people don't really want to interact with people they don't know as much. Like, particularly, I found living in Queensland, I could walk down the street and be like, hey, how you doing? Whatever. And it would be fine. Yeah. And if you do that in Melbourne, people are like, this guy's a crazy person. Like, why are you talking to me? I don't know you.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, coming from London...
is London more kind of fuck off, don't talk to me?
I think here's what you got in terms of... I think it's like Melbourne's more open.
Yeah.
And then you've got Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney.
And then you've got London.
Yeah.
And then you've got New York. And like in terms of like openness, but like London, it's like don't even think about it. You might be lucky, and someone might be drunk enough at a pub to be like, "Oh, what's going on, man? Like, what's your name?" But like on the whole, I don't think you'd really get that. I think coming to Melbourne from London, it's like, oh, people are a little bit more
open.
a little bit more open, but also like it's like, what's your metric? My metric is London.
For sure, yeah. It would be tough to, if you were in New York, people like, fuck you, leave me alone.
Yeah. People in New York are screaming at each other.
Genuinely. I also think, in the UK, like, have you heard of tall poppy syndrome?
Yeah.
It's super prevalent in Australia. For even posting stuff on social media, people are like, who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah.
Go back to being normal. Is that similar in the UK?
Yeah,
or less so? Yeah.
Totally. I think the only place is really like opposite is in a Western countries would be the States.
The States, yeah.
Where it's like they just worship anyone who's got any success.
It's a very different culture. I was listening to a podcast on the way here. You know James McCann, he's an Aussie comic, and the guy he was on was like talking shit about Jimmy Carr. He was like, yeah, he just does jokes and what the fuck is that? Like blah blah blah. And I was like, he doesn't the contrast between American humour and like Australian and UK humour is very different, I think. And the attitude as well towards people who are successful or people who are like trying to do something like that. I think is
totally. I don't think it really happens at our level.
No.
Actually, I'd say that's probably not true. I think it probably does happen at our level, but it's more jealousy.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what tall poppy syndrome is. It's just jealousy.
People, I think, you go through a stage where like, I don't know if you experienced this, but when I first started stand-up and I was like, I'm going to do it, people were like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. You get to like a year in and you're still doing open mics. So when are you doing like a big show? Like, are you making any money kind of thing? It's like...
But it's funny, like there isn't a lot kind of publicly known about the process of becoming a comic.
Yeah.
Like my mum was like, so how long are you going to be doing this? And I was like, well, I think it would take between 5 and 10 years before I'm like really kind of knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And only then will I be able to kind of like make the right steps towards...
To like making a proper living kind of thing.
Yeah. And she was like, you're going to be doing this in 5 years?
So nothing's changing. But it is a sobering reality for a parent. It's like,
yeah.
So you're going to a bar show every night for the next 10 years. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it now probably helps that I'm sober.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I'm not going to a bar every night because I'm going to a bar every night.
Yeah.
I'm doing my art.
It's an artistic thing. Yeah, for sure. And I've spoken about this on other episodes. I think it's good that you've sort of made that call, if not, just for now, because you can fall into the pitfall. Like how many, and myself included, I've been a pisshead comic at times where like, you fall down the rabbit hole of just drinking more than you're actually doing work for stand-up.
Yeah, especially if like for someone like me who's unemployed and like Are you unemployed?
Fuck yeah.
Oh, sick.
Living at home with mum and dad.
Oh, no, I'm not living at home. I'm on the dole.
I'm
not a loser.
Fucking bitch.
Honestly, I don't know what's worse. It's like a girl you're like talking to, you tell her you live at home with mum and dad or you're on the dole.
Which
one's more favourable? I think they belong in the same category.
I think either way you're not getting laid.
Yeah, well.
I've led with, oh yeah, I'm a comedian.
Can I buy you a drink with my government money?
Yeah. Your taxes paid for this time. Yeah, I've definitely led with like, oh yeah, I'm a comedian. It's like, oh, so can I come around to your place? It's like, well, the thing about that is,
I am a comedian.
In Australia, we earn nothing.
Yeah. So I think it just goes. I mean, like I would like to get through the comedy festival sober. That's my aim. I want to kind of prove to myself, if nothing else, that I can get through a festival season or a festival. Sorry. Sober. Like this is a job I want to do, and if I can prove to myself that this isn't just like
not just a hobby, for sure. And I think that's
the hardest thing to do because comedy festivals are so fun. You just
Yeah.
around comedians from around the world, interstate, just
all the time that everyone's having a good time.
having a party for a month straight
Yeah.
and performing. So I think that's something I want to get onto the other side of, and just say I did it.
Yeah,
Kind of have that badge.
and I think that sort of proves to your own power of will, that you can step away from. And also, I find because I did a month at the start of this year, and you still go out and hang out and have a good time. And I found that even just drinking a non-alcoholic beer, but then I could drive home and go to the gym the next day and not feel like a haggard piece of shit was pretty good.
Well, yeah, I think when it comes to not drinking, I think if I've learned kind of anything in the last 3 months, it would be that why were you drinking?
Yeah.
It's was I drinking to drink?
Yeah.
Because I think I'm having a better time now without an objective to get fucked up.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm just the people around me are all I have tonight to have a good time.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a good time with these people.
For sure.
I think sometimes someone like myself can just get lost in having a good time because of whatever substance is involved.
Brother. We've been out together.
Yeah.
You know this to be true.
Yeah,
Sure. It's an interesting thing that it's come up with in a few of my conversations with comics on this podcast of you're why are you drinking? Are you trying to have a good time and you want to do this, or are you feeling anxious, or you're bored, or what's the emotional? I was talking to, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me talking about it, Brendan Kinch about it. He was I realised I was just anxious all the time, and so I'd have a few drinks, and then that would just kill that feeling, and then that became habitual, and then the drinks increase.
Yeah.
And then that increases the anxiety, and he's it spirals pretty quick.
Yeah, it's codependent.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Well, no, I think I would totally agree with that. I think it just makes it all worse. And then it's where's the place for it? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm
trying to my attitude for this year is celebrating things that are worth celebrating, but don't go and get blacked out on a Tuesday for no reason. Because you had an okay set.
Are we going to the casino? It's Monday.
We need to tell them that. This episode comes out on a Thursday. I'm trying to, pretend like I'm some healthy guy. You just outed me to my audience.
No, I get what you're saying.
For sure. I don't know. You've just being mindful of it, given the industry we work in, and because you can drink.
Oh, totally. You're out all the time.
But you do see people that get away. I think it's getting away with it. Some pros that are just hammering drinks all the time, and it's I don't understand that.
Some people can do it, and it's
just not me.
It's so impressive.
I'm such a little bitch now when I get hungover. I don't want to talk to anybody. I hate my jokes. Getting up on stage, I'm sweating. I look like my face is doubled in size. It's already big to begin with, so I don't need anything making me look worse, sort of thing. But yeah, you see these people, different breeds that can just...
I'm kind of jealous of people who can do it, because I know I've got mates who smoke weed all day, every day.
Again, I can't do it.
They just enjoy being a bit high and they crack on with their day. But if I smoke a joint, I
That's me.
There goes my day.
Done.
I tried to smoke a joint and go to the gym once, and
I would have had a panic attack.
I just got really distracted, and I kept going between all the
this machine's cool.
Yeah, I was just getting distracted, and I was I'll go for a little run, and I get 2 minutes into that, and I'll be oh, the rowing machine. I don't think I can count that as a workout. It's just
you're just kind of ADHD in around the gym. Yeah. Have you ever gone on stage high?
Yeah. Oh, there was this one gig that I did where it was basically a comic who had planned a gig in I don't know what you'd call it. I guess it would be a garage or a shed, but it was kind of converted into a lounge room. And he kind of put a mic in the corner, invited all of his mates.
Sick.
And they were just smoking joints for 3 hours while a litany of comics were just
coming in and out,
railing through with their material. And I was already pretty far gone by the time I got up on stage, but But what was so funny was comics were going in sober,
Yeah.
planning to drive home.
Oh, and then just getting
then
secondhand stoned.
Yeah. That's a hot box. So
Yeah.
they come out stoned. There were comics who'd never been high before, just going,
I feel weird.
I think I'm high.
Yeah, I had that on the Thursday Night Live show, and was sitting next to Mading, and he one of those guys can smoke joint after joint.
Yeah.
I'm driving home from St Kilda. I'm like, I'm so fucking hungry. And I went to Macca's, and I was like, wait. I looked in the mirror, and my eyes are bright red. It's like, I'm fucking stoned as fuck right now.
So funny.
It's like, oh, I came home, and I was like to my parents, I was like, I think I'm high as shit right now. Like, go to bed. I was like, I think I'm gonna eat.
How do your parents deal with it? Are they cool with it?
Well, it's trial by fire. You know, I've been caught doing anything and everything. So
Have you?
now they're just like, you're a lost cause,
Yeah.
I think, for the most part.
That works.
You know, they don't love it, obviously. But, like, I don't really smoke anymore. Like, I used to smoke a lot. Now, occasionally, I will. But I'm the same. You know, like, if I smoke during the day, my day is fucked.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do anything. I tried smoking weed before. I went on stage once, and all I could focus on was how my mouth sounded in the microphone. Like, I was like, this is...
I have performed. I performed drunk. I think performing tipsy is like the most fun.
Yeah.
Because you're loose and you
can just
like,
fucking, you know, like,
you
yeah.
can vibe it out. You don't have any of that kind of like anxiety. I think if you're drunk, it's like it go either way. And it's the same with being stoned, because like when you're stoned, it's like there's that kind of moment just before you go on stage where your heart's like pounding.
Yeah.
And it's like, regardless of how confident you are as a performer,
Yeah, it always happens.
you hate waiting to go on stage.
Yeah.
And
That's why you'll see, like, before a comedy show, some people, like, go off by themselves, other people, like, pacing in circles.
yeah,
like,
it's just like waiting for your turn. Because like as soon as you get up there, it takes 3 seconds for that feeling to go away.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm fine now.
Yeah,
Like,
it completely,
what was I worried about?
It's that, yeah, it's the moment just before, or when you know, for me, it's like when I'm in 2 or 3 people, is that feeling, it's like, okay, it's about to happen. What if it doesn't happen? What if you should, like, you know, and then, like, yeah, you get that, like, heart pounding. As soon as you get up on stage, hey guys, how you doing? It's gone.
Yeah, totally. And then I think the most comfort comes after you get your first laugh.
Yeah.
Once you get your first laugh, you're like, okay, I can make that happen.
Yeah. And when you get on a bit of a roll and you know what's coming, you're like, okay, if you like that, you're going to like that part.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm going to throw in a new bit here. So even if that, like, I had a gig in the Gold Coast and I got a new bit that's kind of political. And it's, you know, a controversial political joke. And I said it, and it was just dead silence. And I'd been killing for 7 minutes. I was like, guys, I'm joking. Okay, it needs work. I get it. And they all laughed at that.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's so funny, like, being on stage and kind of having enough experience. Because I remember being on stage and it was just panic.
Yeah.
It was like, here's my next joke, and here's my next joke, and here's my next joke.
like shaking the whole time you're on stage. Like,
And I think eventually you get to this kind of place with performing where it's like, there's kind of like 2 things happening. There's the control room in your brain.
Yeah.
Where you're working out the audience.
Yeah.
You're trying to work out what they might like next. What's your next bit? Where's this bit going? There's kind of a lot happening behind the scenes where what all they're seeing is someone who's just up there telling jokes.
for sure.
And I think it's so fascinating. Kind of, I remember the transition from being like panic mode to being relaxed enough to think while I'm up there.
And actually, yeah, being able to think, I think, is only something that comes with, like, either experience or, like, delusional confidence kind of thing. Because I think, your first few months at least, if not longer, you are just like, joke, like, fuck. Whereas you can sort of get in that place where, like, you're like, oh, what about this funny, like, line that I just thought of? And you throw it out
you
there.
start riffing. It's comfortability.
Yeah.
You're just being comfortable up there.
100%.
But being stoned on stage is like, it'll go one of 2 ways. Either you're like loose and you're having a good time, or it's panic mode.
For sure. It can turn off that sort of flow state, and then it's just like...
Yeah. And then Coke is like just a no-go zone.
Don't do that. It's
you
bad.
just, because like, who's funny on Coke?
Nobody.
Like,
Nobody.
it's you're confident to a level where like you're not fun.
Yeah. And
Like, you're fun to other people who are on Coke.
yeah, only to other people that are on coke. Like,
Otherwise, you're just ba 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 ba.
if you've ever walked into, like, a coked out room when you're, like, drunk, and everyone's just talking about themselves, but like waiting for their turn to talk.
Yeah.
You're like, this sucks. These people are so boring. Yeah.
Never don't do coke with coke people.
For sure. That's sage advice. But yeah.
So that mixed with being on stage is just like shouting.
Yeah. Well, I think Joey Diaz was like, yeah, you're not connecting with the audience at all. Like you're just like talking at them. And I think that's what a similar thing with being like really drunk. Sometimes you can just be like, I'm the shit. These jokes are so funny. Like you don't get it. Like you can get.
Dude,
like,
you meet so many people who come to a comedy show. You end up chatting with them afterwards. You have a beer, and they just like talk about how good they would be at it.
Yeah.
And
Go on,
you're running a room. Like there was this one guy who came to a room that I was running in the city, maybe like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And he came to a show. He was talking like
Talking a huge game, yeah.
And then when it came to being on stage, I was like, all right, you're up next, buddy. And he was like, no, I'm not getting up there.
Really? He
Didn't
folded?
get up there. And then afterwards was like, oh, nah, my girlfriend gone to the toilet, wanted her to make sure that she could see it.
And you're like, you're a liar.
I was like, do you really... Is that the truth? And he was like, yeah, you know. I was like, okay, cool. Well, everyone's gone now.
Yeah.
So me and the other room runners that I was running the room with were like, cool, we'll be your audience. You get up there.
That's awesome. And did you do it?
He did it, and just like, it's so funny watching someone go from like being super confident to then being on stage for the first time.
Yeah.
Because they just seize up and they're like, oh...
Yeah, it's that false bravado. And
I could say something through this mic and everything I said would be funny because I'm a funny guy.
Yeah, it's not that at all.
It's not that.
Yeah, 100%. And I love those people, because particularly with my room in Queensland, like if they're hanging out for a beer afterwards, like, all right, next week, let's do it. And then inevitably, some of them, I've had 3 that have gotten up and murdered straight away.
Oh,
and
really?
I was like, fair play. There's one guy, he was shithouse drunk.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, I'd be so good at it. Trust me, man, you'd be so impressed. I was like, all right, next week, got up and killed for 7 minutes. First set on stage, like, loudest last of the whole room. We had 10-year comics, 5-year comics. We were all a bit like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an MMA fighter, and he was just like, I think I'd be pretty funny. And it's like, so I'm not even going to talk shit to you because you'll roundhouse kick me in the face.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there's this one guy, like, it's always just overconfident people.
Yeah, for sure.
This one guy was really drunk and he was like, fucking, I was emceeing and he was like, put me on, man, put me on. Oh, I'll absolutely murder. And I was like, oh, it's a quiet night, fuck it. So I put him up there and he said like one racist joke, that the sort of joke you can get away with saying in front of your friends, not to a crowd of strangers.
For sure.
Bombed. Immediately realised he didn't have 5 minutes of material. He just had that one racist joke he thought was going to get a 5-minute laugh. Then after that, he just went around the room going, what do you do for work? And they were like, oh, I'm in consulting. Oh, okay. What do you do for work?
Don't have any material on
So,
that.
like, are you just going to go around asking everyone what they do for work and then just get off stage?
He's like, so now we all know what each other does for work. Tell us your favourite thing to do on the weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I love watching, like... And I think, do you get to the thing, I'm at this point now where I love watching my friends do well, but I also, in a sadistic way, love watching them, like, try a new joke or, like, a kind of edgy joke, and then it just bomb, and then you're just like...
I totally get what you're saying. I think...
maybe I'm an asshole.
No. I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's both. Because when you're gigging with mates all the time, you know their material.
Yeah.
Better than they know their material.
100%.
Like, I've had Steve turn to me the other day, we were at a gig, and he was like, what was that bit I used to have about this? And I was like, told him the joke.
Yeah.
He goes, I completely forgot about that punchline.
Yeah.
And so when a friend is up there doing new stuff...
Yeah.
That's exciting because you're like, oh, now I get to hear kind of like what you're working on rather than all of this stuff that I already know.
100%.
And whether it goes well or it bombs is like 2 different levels of excitement, but they're both exciting because if it goes well, you can enjoy that new joke.
Yeah, you're like, that's funny, fuck yeah.
With the audience and how you know how that feeling is.
Yeah.
But when it bombs, you're like, nice try, buddy.
There's camaraderie in it. And I think that's one of my favourite things about being a comic is like, we all shit talk each other. Like, oh yeah, like you're not that funny. Like we all know that you suck, and like
Yeah.
it's just not. And like when you laugh at someone bowing, it's because it's like right around the corner. It's just sitting right here, waiting for you the next time you try a new joke, and they'll be like,
Yeah. Well, it's like we're all going through the same thing.
yeah. And it is a weird experience getting up in it. Has it affected your life in other ways, like outside of stand-up? Because it has mine, I think, for the better, I would say.
Tell me how it's affected yours. I might be able to relate.
I just think in general confidence and also dealing with rejection and like self-belief. I think now it's like, for example, when I was finishing uni, if I was like in a group with people or, you know, had to do a presentation or like group work, I'd always be like, oh, I can't be bothered. Like get a bit like, oh, I don't really want to talk to these people. Whereas now it's like, oh yeah, what the fuck? What's your deal? What's like just a level of comfortability,
Yeah.
I think, in being uncomfortable. Like,
I think so. I think embarrassment
yeah.
is something that kind of go because like putting yourself on stage and bombing for 5 to 10 minutes, and you do that enough times, you'll start to find a mechanism to
Just ignore the feeling.
ignore what embarrassment is.
Yeah.
Like public embarrassment. It's like I don't care what people I'm never going to meet think of me.
Yeah.
And even if I embarrass myself in front of my friends, if they're good friends, I shouldn't be embarrassed.
I think you're cutting yourself a break a little more comes easier after like, you know, you've gone on stage and talked about shitting yourself on a first date and then no one laughed. You're like, oh, well, I'm going to file that and then, you know, things that happen in cabinet.
And I think what comedy has taught me on top of that is because comedy is such a marathon.
Yeah.
Like it's the like pinnacle of what a marathon is aside from doing a marathon.
Yeah.
You know what? It's easier to do a marathon.
at least that's 6 months and then it's over.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think when it comes to comedy, it's like, you know, this is going to be like a 10-year grind.
Yeah.
And I think when I first, because like when I started film, I was like, I want to be an assistant director. It was that thing. I was like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to do what it takes to get to that point. And I grinded and I had loads of opportunities to do the thing that I thought was going to take a while to do.
Yeah.
And so it's just been a constant like work hard, receive reward program. But when it comes to comedy, it's because it's such a long slog.
Yeah.
I think what I've taken to appreciate in life outside of comedy is that you don't need it all now.
Yeah, delayed gratification sort of thing, and patience,
exactly.
like,
Patience. That's all it is. It's just patience. It's just understanding that like putting hard work in, making the right decisions, taking the right steps will lead you to eventually it'll pay off. Just keep on the path. Yeah, and it's all consistency, and like especially with like kind of being sober. It's like, well, what am I working towards? It's like you can be sober for a month, but then you can always just go back to being
a sober month, and then going straight back to binge drinking 4 nights a week.
And I
like,
think,
what have you done?
Exactly.
There,
so I think what comedy's helped me in that is kind of understanding that there actually might be a long-term goal here. I just need to kind of accept your pitfalls, accept kind of the long journey that might end up being.
For sure. And was it a thing for you? And feel free, we can cut it out. We don't have to talk about it on the podcast. Was it a thing for you where you felt like I'm getting a bit out of control with how much I'm getting pissed or whatever, or was it just like I need a reset?
Yeah,
and again,
I'm totally fine talking about it.
Yeah.
I was a bit of a weird one because it's not always really been exclusively drinking.
Yeah.
But it's like whatever it is, I will find myself spiraling.
Yeah, consuming a lot of it.
It's like, it doesn't even have to be like substances. It can also be food. Like I gained so much weight doing comedy because you're just consuming, and like that leads to drinking, and drinking leads to eating, and eating leads to drinking, and drinking leads to...
And then all of a sudden you're just drinking and just eating and not doing any exercise. And
exactly. And so I think when it comes to kind of having that mindset where you can kind of look after yourself, I think it's it's really important, especially in comedy.
For sure.
There's this lie that we all tell ourselves that the tortured comic is the best comic.
Yeah, it's not true. You can be like happy and healthy and together and tell funny jokes.
How special you have to be, first of all, that level of a sesh head and still get up the next day to sesh again.
Yeah.
And then also be a comic at the same time. It's like being a comic on its own is hard enough.
Yeah, writing, getting to gigs, you know, like actually nailing new punchlines and stuff.
The greats who have been able to achieve it tend to die.
Yeah. And died pretty young.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting towards 30 now, and it's like, yeah, there used to be almost this like romanticism in being like, going out and sending it, and, you know, artist and whatever, like different. And then,
it's like this rock life.
Yeah, you get to a certain age and you're like, well, that kind of sucks. Like, if you're going out all the time and getting shit-faced and not taking care of yourself and even, like, sleeping around and stuff, eventually you're like, I'm not fulfilled.
Yeah.
This isn't making me happy. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I think kind of appreciating comedy, I think what I've realized when going sober is like how many comics go, yeah, I'm doing that. Like, I've been sober for 8 years.
Yeah.
Like, what?
It is weird when you start thinking
you were doing that for 8 years. He goes, oh, well, you know, you just sesh too much, don't you? And then you just realise if you really want it, then you're going to get your act together. And I'm like, oh, shit, I didn't realise how many people were doing this. And I think it's like maybe more of a modern era of comedian that is kind of working it out.
For sure.
Because, like,
and then you had 30 years
ago.
ago.
At some of the legends that were just like.
Yeah, Kinnis and Pryor.
Carlin
destroyed their whole lives, basically.
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Massive sesh head.
Mate, huge. I mean, you could tell with him, for sure, that he was geared up the whole time. But yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, it is easy to fall into like, yeah, but look at the greats. It's like, yeah, but you're not them. And it's so competitive. For me, getting it under control is, you know, there are so many reasons why it might not work out. Do you really want to be one of them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, imagine if you like put in all this work, but you just kept getting fucked up the whole time.
Who wants to give the opportunity to the guy who's making a tit of himself?
Yeah, exactly. But it's also too, like, imagine, you know, maybe you just weren't cut out for it. But then if you have that thought in your mind, like, oh, what if I went sober, or what if I wasn't partying so much?
Yeah.
Could it have been different? Like,
get it right the first time.
That would be a scary thought to have. And like, there's Ron White. There's a story about him where, because he's sober now, I think, well, doesn't drink anymore, and he was like already a successful touring comic, and I think it was like the Funny Bone or something, and he slept with the waitress, like a larger waitress, the night before, and then got on stage hammered, and just was like, did crowd work about how ugly she was and how fat she was.
Was it Ron White?
Yeah.
Oh, and because I know this story, I didn't know it was Ron White.
Nuked his whole life.
Yeah,
and she like became like this huge deal in America. Never booked him. He moved to Mexico, bought a pottery fucking farm.
Yeah.
And then someone saved his career, you know, luckily for him. But like, even someone that good can cook it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I think. I mean, it's insane what you're up against.
Yeah. Sure.
And like, especially when there's so many comedians out there, and there's so many funny comedians out there.
Really funny comedians.
Like people who no one will ever hear of.
Yeah, 100%. You know,
whether they're hitting the open mics, they're trying, they're grinding, and like maybe you're one of them, maybe you break through, maybe you become a club comic in Manchester.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? You guys will in, 5 to 10 years. You might be looking at this and saying, wow, these guys made it. And you might be looking at this. We might be showing this to like our families, like, yeah, this one time
this was the height of my career. Yeah. I was on this podcast with my mate.
This is back when I was happy. Now I just work at a bank. Fucking.
What would you be doing if you weren't doing comedy?
To be honest, man, I don't really know. Like, I never really had an idea of what I wanted to do with my life. Like, I wanted to be a professional snowboarder for ages. You know, like toured around the world, kind of doing that. I was never good enough. I kept getting injured. I just got to this point where like my body just gave up. Like, I couldn't snowboard anymore, really.
Not even.
And then, like, I can still do it, but I couldn't like compete. Yeah, like sort of thing. And and then it was like, oh, maybe I'll like do some business thing. And then I did a finance degree and I hated it. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a lawyer. And I did one law subject and I hated it. And then I was like, oh, I don't know. So I graduated that and I sort of like floated around working part-time. Went to Queensland, still didn't know what I was really doing with it. I knew I sort of wanted to do something.
So you were based in Melbourne?
Yeah, I grew up in Melbourne.
You grew up in Melbourne?
Yeah.
You moved to... I always sort of thought you were a Queenslander.
No. I'm just a bogan from Melbourne.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, but no, so...
Because I judged you based on that.
I grew up literally a stone's throw from here, like 2 minutes away.
Okay, yeah.
Went to one of the lovely private schools in Kew. You know, they would look at me and be like, what the fuck did we do wrong there? But that's a different story. But yeah, it was like... I only moved...
So you started comedy in Queensland?
Here. I started at Sellers. So I did Hard Knock Knocks.
Did we meet before you left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think once. But it was like
I think we were hanging out at Sellers.
Yeah, and we got drunk at Sellers that night.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I did Hard Knock Knocks just before COVID.
I think that was when I was 2 months in and thought I was awesome.
Yeah. I thought you were pretty good. I was like, oh, these guys big deals in the scene. That was my takeaway from that night.
Yeah. It's like when you're brand new and this guy's like got the ego of someone who's been doing it for 15 years.
And then a brand new Mikey comes in and you're like, here's what you need to know about comedy.
Fuck, I remember that.
But yeah, and then I didn't even mean to move to Queensland. I just went up there just after COVID, and then I met my ex, and then Melbourne locked down, and so I was like, well, I'm not going to go back to lockdown, so I'll just stay up there with her.
Yeah.
Then she did a master's, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life, so I was like, fuck it, I might as well get into more HECS debt, and I can do a master's in business, which I already know that I hate, and so I did that, and now I'm back. So
you finished your masters?
Yeah. So I got a master's business. It's actually been really helpful, to be honest.
Are you still in a relationship?
Nah, fuck no.
No.
Definitely not.
What's your take on being in a relationship in comedy?
I think you can definitely do it.
Cool. Sounds like you've never done it.
I haven't. Have you?
I've seen it fail enough. I was seeing someone, and I think I realised I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like not while I'm new and trying to create something.
I think the only thing would be for me is that whether it's selfish or not, comedy is pretty much, aside, friends and family, you care about them, but this is like the main thing I think about all the time, 24/7. And I'm willing to sort of sacrifice pretty much everything to figure out how to make this work and how to be the best comic that I can be.
Yeah.
And so I don't know whether that would allow me necessarily to give as much as would be fair in a relationship. But then you see some happy couples that the girlfriend comes to gigs and happy to pick you up after shows and...
Who?
I can't think about it. I'm trying to think of...
There's only one person, it's Tyson Popplestone, but I think he's got like 2 kids.
Yeah.
And I asked him the other day, I was like, how do you make that work?
Yeah.
And he said that his wife, or partner.
That helps if you're married as well, because a lot more admin to leave you for being a comedian if you're married and have kids.
Well, she said to him, she was like, you are a better version of yourself when you do this.
Fuck, that's a woman right there. Like that's... I didn't talk to Tyson. Where do we find like that?
So I think maybe it's just finding the right person who can kind of it wouldn't be detrimental to them to be dating someone who is committed to being a comic.
Yeah, and they'd have to understand the lifestyle of I'm out all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes what we're doing to get better and further our network, it'll be like, oh yeah, so we went to this bar and then we went to the casino and then we all got food afterwards. And she's like, you just went hanging out with your friends. What are you talking about? But in reality...
No, babe, I'm networking.
No, it's networking. It's like when I say to
we just lost the house. You put it all on red. No, babe, I'm networking.
I spoke to my accountant and I was like, could I claim the trip to Edinburgh on tax? And she was like, well, yeah, probably.
If you get paid.
Yeah.
You don't have to get paid anything, really.
I could just get someone to pay me.
I think you can get paid $10 and just claim the whole thing.
I'm going to cut that part. They go back. So we watched you in this podcast about you planning to fucking claim this trip. And then just Why are there so many $300 withdrawals?
Why are you watching my podcast?
Yeah. I've just got so many fans at the ATO.
Well, thanks for watching. It's so funny because, like, I think as an individual, you can either think you know or you know that you're going to do the distance.
Yeah.
And I think what you get in comedy a lot of the time are tourists.
Yeah.
Like comedy tourists, where they come through, they think this is what they want to do, they do it, they realise it's a hard grind.
Yeah.
They're not going to get a Netflix special in 6 months.
Yeah.
And they kind of drop off maybe within a year, and then you get people who will last 2 or 3 years and realise that they're sacrificing a lot of real life
Yeah.
for this.
100%.
And it's like, well, if this isn't real life,
yeah. If this isn't your life, then what, then it's not
go
for
back
you.
to whatever that
Yeah.
is, to whatever that is for you. And it's quite funny because, like, even when I met you outside of Sellers that one time, I think I knew at that point I was in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to do. Obviously, you go through moments of, like, rocky moments where you're like, I don't
You're
think
like,
I can do
what
this
am I
anymore.
doing? Yeah.
But when I met you, I was like, I think this guy's in it for the long haul.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to a friend about it the other day, and that's very nice of you to say, because I completely am. But it's one of those things where, like, it's such an uncertain... Do we have enough light? Yeah, fuck it, it's fine.
We do have enough light.
But, like...
I can turn on a light.
The dark is ambiance. Do you want to turn on a light?
I can turn on a light if you want me to turn on a light.
No, fuck it, it's fine. But, the thing, like, is it's such an uncertain thing we're doing, right? There's no guarantee that either of us makes any sort of recognised career out of it. But it's, like, basically the only thing I've been sure of that I'm, like, of doing career-wise.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm pretty certain about, like, I'll find a way to make this work. It might not be in, Netflix special stardom. It could be,
It doesn't even have to be.
Yeah, it could just be running tours or helping other... I don't know what it is, but it's like...
This is the industry you want to be in.
This is it. And I love it. Like, it's more than I've loved anything, I think.
Yeah, there was a huge concern for me because I spent, like I said, I started making films when I was 8. I worked my whole life. I'm going to be a film maker. And then I got in the industry and realised that I didn't want to do it. And I think that was the hardest thing I've had to process and just grieve.
Yeah, because you're sort of like giving up this like dream life.
This is what I thought I was going to be. And I realised I don't have what it takes to put in the grind and sacrifice everything for this.
For sure.
And so when I joined comedy and I was like, oh, this is my thing, I was really worried that was...
Dude.
Is this the same thing all over again?
Yeah.
Am I going to spend the next 10 to 15 years of my life thinking this is it and only realising right at the end
that this isn't for me?
This isn't for me.
Yeah.
And I think after 2 years in comedy now, or almost 2 years, I think I'm like, okay, cool. I think I can settle down and realise that this is still a grind that I'm up for doing.
Yeah, 100%. I identify with that so much, man, because I've talked about this in therapy. Like, when I realised I cannot be a professional snowboarder, it's what, again, similar, like what I wanted from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't reckon I applied myself properly to anything really after that for like a good 6 or 7 years. Like, I'd get through stuff and I'd get degrees and whatever, but like I didn't find that thing, and it was almost like I was like, yeah, but if I had this dream and then it's not worked once, and then that's why I would like, I'm a huge advocate for getting into therapy. Been in it for the past 6 months. It's one of the best things I've ever done is getting back to it. I like wanted to protect that because it's like I love this so much. I don't want to like mental gymnastic my way out of it, if that makes sense. And like I think that experience of like having an idea and then like kind of realizing that idea isn't for you is really pivotal in sort of finding maybe what you're meant to. I mean, who knows? You're 2 years in, I'm just over a year in. Like, we don't know if it's going to be a success story. But
I think something that I've kind of come to terms with is like, even if in 5 years' time I turn around and go, that wasn't what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was fully aware the entire time that at that moment, that was exactly where I wanted to be.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think kind of like just enjoying that whole, like every moment, like when I'm like sat at like the back of a comedy room and my mates are performing on stage and you're just hanging out, like there's so many in the moment nostalgic
Yeah, like little bits of
where I go, oh, this is like
this is what we do.
This is what I'm going to be talking about
for sure. And that's the thing. Like, if you can look back and if 5-10 years and it doesn't end up the way you want it, you can still be like, yeah, I did it though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like found out whether it was for me. You know what I mean?
Whatever the reason I'm doing it, whether it is for success or I don't end up doing it, I think whatever it is, it's good for me.
Yeah, and I also think, to be honest, even if it doesn't, and like I end up, having to get a job, which is looking more and more likely by the day, with my parents listening to these podcasts, they're going to be like, "Get the fuck out of our house!" You're a loser. But like, I think I'd still do it for fun.
Yeah,
like I enjoy it so much that it'd be sick to be like, even if you don't succeed, it'd be sick to be like 60 and just jump on a mic and crush. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like rock out. Even like it would be like, I find it so fun and so fulfilling that I think I would do it regardless of whether it works or not.
Yeah,
kind of thing. I mean, I hope it works.
And I think that is what you need. Because I think there are people out there who wouldn't still do it if they were told that in 15 years
they'd be still at the same open mic doing this.
Yeah, exactly. I think you have to do it because you enjoy it regardless. And I think that's also part of the journey of kind of coming to terms with that.
And I think that's just growing up, right? Like finding out what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
And, figuring out what is important to you. I think we've chatted about it before. I think there's also a lot of people that like to be able to say, oh, I'm a comedian, more than they like doing the actual work of like writing jokes and getting on stage.
I think the more I do the work, the more I realise I'm not really a comedian.
It's such a stark difference from 2-3 months in.
At what point do you... Well, no, it is, because it's like 2-3 months in, you're like, oh...
I'm telling everybody.
I'm a comedian. I'm a stand-up. And then, like, you put it on your Instagram profile.
Oh, yeah, it's true. I think I did it before I got on stage.
Oh, did you? Yeah, well, no, understandably. It's so exciting. And then, like, the more you do it, you're like, oh, at what point can I say?
I think if we're running rooms and we're doing comedy festival shows, you can say that you're a comedian.
Do you think?
I think so. I've heard a lot of people talk about if you get on stage regularly and tell jokes, you're a comedian.
I guess so.
Maybe not a professional comedian.
Yeah, true. I guess that's the difference.
You know what I mean? Like, or a touring stand-up.
Yeah, because I talk to Blaze about it all the time, and it's like, at what point do you...
Yeah. I mean, but some people would say...
For him, it was Melbourne Comedy Festival show. After Melbourne Comedy Festival show, it was if I get to Edinburgh.
Yeah, as in doing a solo?
I don't know whether it was just getting to Edinburgh or whether it was doing...
But I think the goalposts also change, you know what I mean?
I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it just does.
I had some of the shows I did in Queensland...
I mean, if you've been doing it for 5 years and you're still an open micer,
you
think you're allowed to say you're a comedian.
100%. But it is funny. Like, do you ever reflect on your journey? Like, I've been reflecting recently because the Queensland shows were sick, and I did some rooms that before I started, I went and watched comedy in these venues, and I was like, it'd be so cool if in like 3 or 4 years I got to do them. And then this last trip, I did them and did well.
Oh no shit!
And then the guy was like, oh yeah, you can have spots whenever you want. And I was like,
that's so cool.
That's really like I had fun. Like it's like cool to say like have seen it. And like, it'd be awesome to do that one day and then perform with some of the people that I saw and like hang out with them. It was just like a cool moment where I was like, huh, like there is a progression there because it's hard to gauge if you're actually moving forward sometimes.
Yeah, well, you're moving forward to different parts. It's like either your writing's moving forward, your stage craft is moving forward, or you're moving forward in your career. Like professionally,
yeah. And the last one's hardest to do, I think, particularly in Melbourne.
Yeah, I would say the hardest to do is... Oh, you're so right, but I would say it's with writing.
Yeah.
It's like writing and career and contention, because I hate writing.
Dude.
I hate sitting down and trying to write. I was meant to write today. I was like, I can't be bothered.
Yeah, I was like, hour every day after breakfast. It's got to be rigid. And then I'll sit there and just fucking... check my phone 5 times and like write one tag, and then I'm like, okay, I wrote today.
Yeah.
But then I find like when I'm about to go to sleep, and I'm a shit sleeper. I can't fall asleep very well. And then just like joke ideas will come then, and I'm like, okay, I'll write them down on my phone. I'm like, it's not structured writing, and I don't know if that works for me. Like guess everyone's process is different.
I've been doing these kind of gig
Vlogs? Sick.
I haven't started posting them yet, but I've started doing these gig vlogs, and one of the questions I ask comedians is, how do you write?
Yeah.
And I'd say about 90% of comedians say that they walk around the house.
Yeah.
Or ideas will come,
Yeah.
they'll sit down and work it out.
For sure.
But, like, very rarely, I think it was, like, Konkudis, the only comic who said that when he's preparing for a show, he'll sit down and write for 6 hours a day.
That's wild.
And I was like, that is actually wild.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
that's a very hard thing to do.
Have you met Andrew Hamilton?
No.
Yeah, I haven't met him, but I'm super funny. And I listened to his book, like his audiobook, and he was on house arrest. And he was like, all I did was write jokes all day. And I was like, if I sat in my house all day, I would like probably have 10 wanks and fucking, like watch 10. Like I would do anything but sit there and write jokes. Yeah, I don't know. Have you done the one where you're like, I'm going to go to a coffee shop and bring my notebook and some earphones?
I've almost done it, but I think I saw what that was going to end up being.